You've been seeking answers from every dermatologist, doctor, and all over the internet, wondering what on earth this unbearable skin issue is. You know something's up, and you've been suffering and silenced for far too long. This podcast is going to bring awareness to the brutal reality that is topical steroid addiction and withdrawal syndrome. It will give you practical mental and physical tips to help you along your journey and provide you the strength you need to push through each day. You'll hear from real people battling this illness, as well as experts in the field, and I'm also going to share with you what's happening as I battle and conquer TSW. You are not alone, you're not crazy, and you will heal. If there's one thing I know, it's that anyone going through this hell is a warrior. My name is Jennifer Powers, and I welcome you to TSW Journey to Healing. Did you know that there is a journal out there just for those of us that have topical steroid withdrawal? And whether or not you're a journaler, this is the best way for you to track what's working, what's not, and enjoy your healing journey. So inside this journal, you get 3 calendars to track your next 90 days of healing. There's free resources, actually even a free gift for every single one who purchases this journal. Plus you get action steps to try, a joy list, gratitude prompts, so many visualization techniques, affirmations, a web of support, mini mental health exams to help you check in with yourself, stress management and grounding exercises, and so much more. This journal has been tremendously helpful in my own healing journey, and now it's available for every single one of us. How cool. I want to invite you to get your hands on it, and you can do so by going to tswjourneytohealing.com/journal. Get yours today and let us know how it's going for you. Okay, now let's get back into the episode. Okay, welcome back to TSW Journey to Healing. Very excited to announce my beautiful and lovely guest, Cara Ward. Cara is somebody that I stumbled upon, I'm not even really sure how. It might have been through the Preventable documentary, I believe, or you're at the end of that, I think. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Or not? Yes. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yes. So I saw you there. And then, of course, you get on the rabbit hole of online world, social media world, and you're just a force. So I was just so amazing, kind of like stalking you a little bit online and seeing like what your story was. And so a background on Cara. Cara went through TSW from 2013 to 2015, where she made a full recovery, and she became passionate about raising awareness with our iatrogenic condition, which we all love so very much. And she shared her experience and advice through her blog, through Instagram, through her book, which I've got right here. And if you're listening to this episode, just picture the split screen. If you're someone going through TSW, I'll share mine in a second too. But what a powerful cover, right? For anybody that is going through this or somebody that knows someone going through this. So wonderful book. And she also, and the book's name, by the way, is Curing My Incurable Eczema. If you haven't gotten it, get your hands on it. Shout out, go find it, Amazon, go on her blog. And she released that at the end of 2017. And it reached, I didn't know this, but this is exciting. It reached the top 5 books in the dermatology charts of Amazon. So congratulations. That's really amazing.
Thank you very much. I mean, I was totally surprised because when I sort of put it out there, it was totally a passion project, and literally for me to sort of draw a line under that period of time, and sort of just, I wanted, because this is kind of my mind anyway, I like to have things down in one place. So it was kind of that in a way, so it wasn't really, so whilst I saw it as a book, obviously I was like writing it, it was never like a book to sell, but I put it out that it's really strange. So it was literally just, I wanted a collection of thoughts in one place. And because I loved writing, it was kind of like a natural thing. So when people started buying it, I was like, what? This is mad. And yeah, I couldn't believe it. People were just so kind about it. It still blows my mind what happened with it, because it literally was just an idea to just put it all in one place. So yeah,
it's such a like cathartic, therapeutic. I agree with you. And that's why I was journaling throughout my journey, and I'm about, let's see, it's February. So at the time of this recording, so it's I guess 12, like 13, 14 months in. But I started writing everything down, because I was all over the place, writing sticky notes, writing notes on my computer, writing notes on my phone, and I'm like forgetting things that I was trying, that I was doing, what was working, what wasn't working. And that's what led me to create my TSW journal, which, similar to you, put it on Amazon. Amazing feedback, because anything we can do to help ourselves, and then if it ends up helping a lot of other people, win-win. I mean, that's totally amazing. But this book truly, I mean, it is, I highly recommend it. You're such an excellent writer. This is so well done. And you really feel in, like, we're there with you. Like, I mean, obviously we're going through it, so we understand it, but hearing it from somebody else on paper in a book like that, it was just, it was really another layer to feeling like you're not alone, you know?
Oh, that's so, so kind of you. I think what's the nice thing about this community is, and I found this because when I went through TSW, it was very much on my own. There were a few people online, but it's a very different landscape to how it is now. And when I sort of started sharing my story, to be able to speak to people who did understand it was amazing. Like, just getting it. So if my book has been able to help in any way, it means the world to me. It really, really does. So
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. So, because it's already 2023, so it's 10 years ago that you started. I have so many questions. Let's start with, does it feel for you like it was 10 years ago? Or does it feel like
no,
no?
literally, I mean, time is such a weird concept. I feel like as you get older, the faster it goes. And especially, it's like, I find like the worst periods of time are like this slow
Mhm.
thing. But like, especially when I got better, I don't know where that time has gone. And
Wow.
it is a message that I keep going on about, that blooming 4-letter word beginning with T, but it really, I just can't believe where it's gone. And
Yeah.
thank goodness. Yeah.
Thank goodness. So you went through it for about 2 years. At what point, I think this is a question, I mean, I even ask myself in our community this, and so many do. At what point would you say you maybe realized, oh my gosh, I think I'm done with it. I think I'm cured. Like, where, because so many times you start to take a huge positive turn and you think, this is it, and then something else happens. So when was it for you that you realized, I beat it. I'm done.
Yeah, no, it was weird because I think we've seen, especially as more and more people are going through it, that there's like a lot of different patterns forming in how people flare. Some people tend to have these like massive breaks, and they sort of almost resume normal life and get out of the TSW mindset. But for me, I mean, I obviously wasn't flaring for 2 solid years, but I definitely didn't have like a period of time within that 2 years where I could do even normal things. A lot of the time my mum was literally washing my hair. My hands got very badly affected during TSW. So during that 2 year period, it was just like, it's like a different way of life. When you're going through TSW, especially when you're flaring, you are very limited what you can and can't do, because it is a physical and mental ordeal. To like put it bluntly, it's just a horrendous thing. You're so uncomfortable. For the first year of withdrawal, I couldn't wear a top. My poor neighbours saw a lot of me during that period, like walking past windows just naked. I literally, all I wore were these M&S like cotton pajamas for 2 years. Like, I don't, I had like tracksuit bottoms that, if I had to leave the house, which was very rarely, but that was kind of my life. And, it was funny. So I would say the first year was when a lot of the full body weeping happened, a lot of those kind of symptoms. But then in the second year, I had this, it was a very weird, it was the symptoms were more isolated, but they were so extreme. So never during that 2 year period was there a period of time where I could see my friends. And, so I definitely, towards the sort of second, would it be the third summer? Oh God, it'd be the third summer. And I noticed that maybe like the burning, because for the whole 2 years, I definitely had like a feeling of burning, skin burning, which was one of the worst for me, especially if I went out. It was like acid, and especially, oh, heaven forbid you sweat. Oh my God. And this was the other thing about the second year. That's when the sweating started for me, where it was like excessive to like the point of waterfall, you know? So I felt I just was very limited. But towards the third summer, I was like starting to, it's difficult because I was still flaring sort of on my face, my hands, my ankles. It was still there, but I definitely noticed like the burning was subsiding and the sweating was sort of subsiding. But then, and I talk about it being quite a sudden recovery because it definitely felt sudden to me. It There was just one day where I woke up and there was this gut. It was like a sort of understanding, as a sort of like, you know, in the ether, there was an understanding that something had changed. And because I sort of looked at my skin, I was like, what? You know, you know, I'd sort of processed it. It was just different and I just felt different. So, and I said to my mum, look at my skin. And she couldn't believe it. And we were just sort of, and I mean, to go from like a period of time where you're sort of consumed by your skin and you sort of just go through the motions just to get through a day, to then both of us, because my mum was just as much, you know, part of the journey as I was, like taking that time to go, something's changed here. And yeah, I mean, touch wood, from that point, I never had a TSW proper flare again. I had, which I've talked about, 2 isolated hand flares when I went to Verbier in Switzerland. Don't understand. I will never understand what happened in Verbier in Switzerland. My skin was like, my hands were just messed up. But yeah, I haven't had like a TSW flare. I had something last year which has sort of caused like sensitivity. You know, it's a very long, crazy experience. But I've never had a TSW flare since. And I just, from that first day where I woke up, you know, with different skin, it just, something had changed. So it was definitely overnight. But yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I know that this experience, I mean, it's ingrained in us forever. And so that's why I was curious to see if you do feel like it felt like yesterday or if it felt like all this time had gone by. And I agree with you, as we get older. I mean, I have a son, and as I say, yes, as we get older, especially if you have a kid too, you're like, oh my gosh, like time is flying. It goes so quickly, which is really good news for anybody listening or watching this that's in the thick of it, because getting through it, it does. I mean, everybody's timelines are different, but time, because it does truly go fast, even though it doesn't feel like it at all when you're in it. It is true. It does. And I don't know, time is on our side. So what, you know, your book is Curing My Incurable Eczema. So what is, if you want to share with those that haven't read it, that don't know you too well, because similar, my background was a child with eczema and put on steroids for that since I was like 2 years old. So what was that similar to your eczema journey? What was that like?
Yeah, sort of. So I was like, you know, I was diagnosed very early on with eczema. My mum, at 6 months old, she noticed like a sort of little patch on my wrist, and she went to the doctor. They said, oh, it's eczema. And they gave her a hydrocortisone cream, and she used it. But my mum, thankfully, thank God, was very, very cautious with any of this medication. So when she used it, she noticed that the sort of symptoms did spread. But I will say that I don't think I had, like, you know, red skin syndrome or whatever we're calling this. It's very difficult because there's like 8 million different terms. I don't actually believe that any of them are very good. But yes, I do think that using the sort of, you know, the hydrocortisone on that patch did cause my body to, it needed to get out. I feel like this is what's very annoying with the way that things like eczema are treated. It's all about suppressing, you know, just put that on. Don't deal with the actual symptoms themselves. Let's just hide the symptoms. But the body has to get it out, I think. And, you know, so I think that initial patch, which was, now that me and my mum look back, around this time was when she transitioned from breast milk to cow's milk. So
Wow.
this is, and I think this is probably quite common, you know, for a lot of kids who are diagnosed with eczema. It might not be eczema. it might just be a response to the body, taking in this new product. You go from your mum's milk to like a different product. It might have a reaction, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a skin condition. But unfortunately, I think these like medications kind of mess up your body's sort of natural response to dealing with things. So in my childhood, I would say that my skin was kind of like childhood eczema, but it wasn't extreme. So I think actually at sort of like 7, 8 years old, it kind of looked like I'd grown out of it. But then roll on secondary school. Hormones, didn't have a good time at secondary school, and that was at 11 years old. My skin started to get bad. I definitely look back and think stress. I was unhappy. Like it's a difficult time for any teenager, and yeah, my skin reacted very badly to the point that they did refer me to the hospital in my teens. And at that point, I just saw like a plethora of sort of hospital dermatologists. And I should say, actually, my childhood, my mum barely used steroid cream ever. Like it was mostly treated with sort of like emollients and bath preparations and all that fun stuff. So yeah, going back to my teens, my skin was really bad. I was, referred to the hospital. And that's when they were very, very insistent on me using medication. And at first, when I sort of thought, looked back at sort of my teens, after I'd sort of recovered from TSW and all that, I did think it was mostly steroids that caused it, topical steroids. But then looking back at sort of my hospital notes, when I sort of started going there, I was using a lot of Protopic. And Protopic, this was before Protopic was sort of sold. I don't know, it's kind of crazy. I look at the time that it was sort of released to the public. I'm using it before it was sort of, I don't know, what's the word I'm thinking of? Anyway, I was using quite a lot of it. So in my teens, I kind of was using Protopic. I was using other things, but it was definitely with the Protopic, I used a course of oral steroids. And from that point, it was like, I can't function without medication on any kind of level. So, and I kind of got stuck in a bit of a vicious cycle for like 10 plus years. I say it's 10, it's probably close to 12 or 13, where I would, be using medication. I'd maybe every so often think I've got to stop using it, my skin would just be unlivable, and it was just, and so I'd go to the doctors, they'd say it's worsening eczema, they'd put me back on steroids. And yeah, this was kind of my life till 25. Thankfully, sort of very early on, when I was sort of, without knowing, reliant on this medication, I realized this stuff is strong, because especially when I was at the hospital, they were prescribing a lot of the like stronger steroids, like Betnovate. I used a lot of Betnovate when I was in my teens. But yeah, I kind of weaned my body down to using first Umivate 1%, and which I used for years. And I found weirdly that if I used Umivate or any kind of steroid just on my sort of this chin area and my hands, my body, everything would sort of tick over, and I wouldn't, it was really strange. They were like my 2 points where it was really strange.
That's just proof that like the skin, it's one giant organ. So what we put over here might affect over here. And that makes it does make sense, but it is kind of crazy when you think about it.
It's great. And and then from like Umivate, I went down to using 1% hydrocortisone, which I used for, I don't even know. It's so difficult, isn't it? You sort of, I wish I'd written it all down, because it's all very vague, and you kind of, as you get on with life, you sort of just, you're not processing things, like I wish I could, looking back. But yes, I was sort of, before discovering what TSW was, I was using sort of 1% hydrocortisone. And then, I discovered TSW and never used any kind of medication to suppress my symptoms again.
How did you? Because, I've only been at this for about 14 months, and I'm sure it was very different 10 years ago. For me, it wasn't an immediate, unlike you would stop using a medication and you very quickly would realize my skin needs it. I would have these very long stretches. In fact, I use prednisone, like oral prednisone, at least, I mean, like maybe like every other year for years. And it was like my favorite drug because my skin was glowing and beautiful after I used it. And it lasted for a long time. But when I started to notice, like second summer in a row, that it was just, I was seeing this bright red neck, and then it would go away, and then it would come back, and then I would feel like a little bit of what I now know is like oozing. And I'm like, this is not eczema. So I go down the rabbit hole online. I come across some Instagram handles. Actually, one of my interviewees is Grace. Grace is Skinderella on.
Ah, Grace, yeah.
Yes,
Fabulous.
such a
Yeah.
sweetheart. But I think it was, I'm pretty sure if I remember right correctly, it was her account that I said, oh my gosh, that's what I have. So for you, how did you discover it? And what was your initial reaction when you figured out, oh my gosh, this is what it is?
Yeah, so for quite a few years before withdrawal, I was noticing that the effects of using, a steroid cream every single day, twice a day, was causing my skin to thin quite badly. The thing that I also found fascinating was on my here, this kind of area, I hadn't used steroid creams in years there, maybe once or twice, but I had super thin skin here, like to the point where it was like purple and like it looked bruised. Like it was so thin, it was terrifying. But even worse was sort of this area was so thin, you could see like all these veins. My mum was so scared, and she'd say to me, look, you've got to do something, because as we both know, the only kind of like side effects they talk about are may thin your skin, may cause stretch marks. That's all we get. So my mum was like, look, this medication is causing, you've got to do something, you're not going to have any skin left. But I kind of was like in a bit of a sort of catch 22, because I thought, I can't stop using this medication because I literally have no life. Doctors have told me I've got incurable eczema. My only way of having a semblance of any kind of normality is to use this medication. And you get drummed into you, for years and years and years. And so I'm like, what can I do, Mum? Like, I don't know what I'm meant to do at this point. So, but yeah, we'd have that conversation, every once in a while. But then I'd just have to go back on it. So when was it? A year before I went through withdrawal, I went to Greece with my friends, and I had like a real weird rash come up everywhere. And I was using the sort of hydrocortisone twice a day, every day. And when I went away, it wasn't clearing it. And I thought, oh my God, what's this? This is very strange. And I noticed as well, like my eyes were sort of playing up a bit and whatever. It was really strange. And I remember I was in this like little Greek village, panicked because I had not very much hydrocortisone left, because I was like innocently just putting it here and here. But I used up this whole thing of hydrocortisone. So I was like, I need to get some steroid cream. Ran into this little Greek town with my friend and was like, I need steroid cream. And I remember I bought for like €1, like this like Umivate, and I slathered my body in it because I was desperate. But it didn't really shift this weird rash thing. So I think from that point, I was quite photosensitive. Something was going on. So for this whole holiday, I was like covered up away from the sun because it was just too uncomfortable. But then when I came back home to the UK's like, summers don't get mental. Well, I say that the last few have been really, really hot, but for the most part, it's quite a temperate climate. So yeah, and then I got back to my routine of using hydrocortisone on my face and my hands. But I was definitely getting to a point of, so I think cogs were, turning and things were sort of clicking into place. I was definitely like, something's wrong. And I remember in sort of like April time, so I started withdrawal in June, so a couple of months before, my eyes, like the skin around my eyes, swelled up so badly, and it was just really bad. And I was using like eye drops, whatever, anything I could get the chemist just to try and get them down. And I was also noticing like patches. I think they were on my leg and like my arms and stuff, just round patches. And I thought, oh, I'll put steroid cream on there, it's eczema, whatever. And they weren't clearing it. And I went to the doctors and they were like, oh, use Betinavate, you need a stronger steroid. And I was in my head, I was like, where am I going with this? Like, so the hydrocortisone stopped working. So what happens when the Betinavate stops working? And she was really awful. You know, as most of us experience, we don't have very pleasant experiences in doctors or dermatologists. So at this point, I'm like, what the hell can I do? And literally the morning of the time that I discover sort of withdrawal, I have this conversation with my mum where she basically is sitting me down saying, your skin is so thin, you have to do something. And instead of brushing it off like I had to do, I had to sit and think and go, okay, what can I do? And I sort of Googled like addicted to steroid cream, and then it was just like information, bam, light bulb, done. I'm never using it again. This is me. I knew straight away that it was that. And I get choked up thinking about it because it's one of those moments, you know, I think a lot of us, it is a light bulb and it's the relief, you know, no matter how traumatic withdrawal is, because it is a trauma, it's just horrendous and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. To have an answer, you know, for so many years, most of us are just given these plasters, these temporary fixes just to get us through the day, get us through the week, get us through the month. But to have like an answer that potentially, because I think for a lot of us, we're quite limited, even using the steroids, we sort of, you know, like going on the beach or whatever, we have like all these big routines that we have to use and sort of, we're always thinking of our skin, but this sort of option sort of was like an answer. And that was sort of mind blowing to me. And I think for most of us, we're kind of, by the time we get to withdrawal, we've run out of options. We've not, so literally withdrawal becomes our sort of only option left. So for me, and I will say, and it's very important to say, my mum was supporting me. You know, I lived at home with my mum and she supported me sort of mentally and, you know, financially. She was there for me in every way imaginable. And I know I wouldn't have been able to do withdrawal without her, like hands down. She's incredible, incredible woman. And I just knew, you know, when I read about it, I was like, I have to do this, you know, and thank goodness it sort of turned out to be the best thing that I've ever done for myself.
I love, it's so true what you're saying. It is very emotional. It's like you're desperate to figure out what is going on or how do I fix it. And then however you find out, oh, it's topical steroid withdrawal and addiction, it's a relief as much as it is like heartbreaking, because it's like we have said, it's an iatrogenic condition, meaning we didn't do this to ourselves and a medication caused this. And that's the saddest part, because we think like human beings are here to help each other. And I think doctors do have good intentions for the most part, and they want to help, but they only know what they know. And this is still such a look, it's 10 years since you started that journey. And we've definitely, I mean, I think that we've made some progress, but it's still nowhere near where it needs to be. So that's why these conversations are so important. But it was, you know, it's funny, when I figured out what it was probably in like November of 2021. And I ended up getting COVID. I ruined Thanksgiving for my whole family. Everyone was excited to get together. And then I got it and my dad got it. So after that point is when I officially noted that I'm steroid free. And I was so naive because I thought, well, I'm just not going to work. I'm going to take all of December off and I'm going to let myself heal. As if it could be 1 month. When I still didn't know very much about it. I just assumed, oh, okay, you get off steroids, going to go through some side effects, and then I'll be on my way. Yeah. And it's just such a rude awakening. It's such a brutal, brutal reality that nobody, even those that are closest to us, like my mother's been so supportive for me. Yours was for you, friends, family members, whoever you've got in your corner, like kiss and hug them tight because they're so, so valuable. But even watching somebody go through it, which is tormenting and traumatic as it for them, I'm sure, you still can never, ever, ever understand it unless you're somebody that's going through it, because the suffering and pain is just, it's unheard of. It's just unimaginable. So What would, so 2 years of, what would you say was, what I really am interested in, like, what was the hardest point in that 2 year period for you, if you could if you could pinpoint what it was, and how did it affect, we talk about like PTSD. I know I have major PTSD from, I'm afraid, I mean, I finally got over it, but for the whole year, I was afraid to touch anything in my medicine cabinet or at a store in the medication aisle, like things that are not steroids. But I started to think, well, there's probably a hidden steroid in anything, and I don't want to even touch it because God forbid it touches my skin. It's going to start me over from day one. So the stress response, the traumatic experience, it's so great. So the mental anguish and the physical, what would you say was the lowest point for you or the worst point?
I think there were definitely, like, it was funny. I obviously cried at like other things during withdrawal, just like watching something sad or whatever. But there was like 3 points I think where I cried, and I cried because of what this condition had done to my life. And I remember there was one time sort of quite early on when it was, there's like a period of withdrawal for most of us where life is just hell, and that you get up and you're just suffering the whole day. It's funny, like I look back and I have to like compartmentalize that in my brain, and sometimes I get slapped in the face with, oh my god, that happened, that period actually happened. But yeah, I remember there was one time at sort of towards the beginning where it was sort of very, very late and I knew I had to go to bed. I was so uncomfortable. I had like feeling of sort of bugs crawling all over you, and everything was a bit intense. There was oozing, there was just swelling, there was all these different things going on, and I was so scared to go to bed because I knew that for the most part I'd probably be awake, uncomfortable, and it would just be awful. And I remember it just was too much, and I really, really wept. And there was another time sort of midway through that it was very difficult, but weirdly, I think probably one of the hardest moments was in year 2. And I think what's interesting about the mental health side of withdrawal is, I think for a lot of us at first, whilst it's probably the most ghastly physically, like I think there's, for me at least, I so believed, and I so believed in what I was doing. Mentally, I had high anxiety, like really high anxiety, but I didn't have so much doubt. I didn't have like fear at this point because I was kind of riding on the sort of knowledge that I was potentially healing, my skin or whatever. But then I got to year 2 and I'm like, certain symptoms were getting worse. Like, if anything, my hands at this point were like, I literally could not move them. My ankle got really bad in the second year, so I couldn't walk much. It was like swollen, it was oozing, really ghastly. My face was still terrible. I had this like irritation, I had the burning still. And it was Valentine's Day in like the sort of second year. So I think it was, yeah, so 2015, so literally early 2015. And it was funny, I was like looking online at like people getting ready for Valentine's Day, going out with their friends, going out with their partners, just getting dressed up and just being like living. And I was just broken, and I just thought, what is life? I'm getting worse. What the hell have I done? I'm filled with doubt at this point because I'm like, how is a process that is meant to heal you, how am I still suffering after 2 years? Because I think the biggest thing that messes with our heads is the fact that TSW is non-linear in recovery. So that, I think with a broken leg, with any kind, usually a healing follows a linear trajectory. But withdrawal, to add like a layer that we really do not need on top of all the other suffering, it's like, let's make this a non-linear recovery to really mess with their heads. So I think for me, that sort of Valentine's Day was just awful because I thought, I've wasted 2 years of my life nearly. I am you know, I'm looking at people, they're living, and I'm like, here, I can't move. And I remember I was meant to see like a theatre show. It was very sweet. Like a few people had sort of arranged this sort of thing that I could leave the house to go. Someone was going to drive me from like the countryside literally to outside the theatre, and this was in January 2015. And they were like, you know what, you don't need to do it, you'll literally be driven from one place to the other. So I could see a musical with my friend. And I got to the day and I was just like, I'm too ill. I can't even get out of my house to get into the car. So I think that was definitely one of the triggers for when it was Valentine's Day, and I thought, I'm not living. But then to put like a positive slant on it, literally like 6 months later, I made a sudden recovery. So I think that's what's the biggest thing. It's everything changes so fast with this, whether it's good, whether it's bad. You can go, and I mean, sort of mentally, especially afterwards, you can sort of see something that's minor and just mentally sort of be broken by it. Like, because like you mentioned, PTSD happens. And I think it's so important that the mental health side of this process is discussed, because I think when I went through it, it was definitely much more of an emphasis on physical symptoms. I don't remember a single person talking about being traumatized, you know, by what they'd been through. They didn't talk about like the sort of high anxiety you would get. They didn't talk about, you know, the doubt and the fear, and they're the things that can be the most crippling through withdrawal, you know. So I was not prepared. And I think if I'd been more prepared, it may have helped me sort of in the 2 years after I recovered from having like panic attacks and having like really sleepless nights over seeing a rash and just having a breakdown. That, because you don't see rashes, you don't see minor things, you see the trauma of what you've been through, you know. And so, yeah, people need to sort of protect themselves, you know, as much as possible.
I think you're right. I was thinking about that the other day because, like, and it was definitely even less aware when you started. But for me, thinking, oh, it'd just be that month, it's almost like you wish that somebody that's been through it, come out on the other side, could say to you, if you're someone that just figured out, this is what you're looking at, this is what you've got lying ahead. If you could have somebody say, like, you're going to be okay, but you are going to go up and down this roller coaster. It is going to be the hardest thing that you'll probably ever have to go through. And I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying that because you're stronger than it and you're going to beat it. But there's going to be days where you don't think you can go on. And it is truly, truly horrible. But not every day is like that. Not every minute of every day is like that. So just to have somebody say, it sounds a little bit scary, but it's also kind of comforting to know that somebody is like not just feeding me fluff and saying, yeah, it's going to be a little bad, but then you'll be okay. Because I had no idea. I mean, none of us had any idea all those symptoms. I mean, and the terror that's around nighttime. Nighttime, I think for almost everybody is like the worst. It certainly was for me.
Oh,
And it is so traumatic. But just to know that, not just to know that there's people that are out there like you going through it, but people that are saying, hey, it isn't going to be easy. It's going to be hard, but you're going to be okay. Like, you know, just to not like tell you what you want to hear, but give you a little bit of like encouragement that, yeah, you're going to do it, but it's going to be rough. You know, it's,
yeah.
And so, you know, yours was 2 years. You know, I've had so many people on the show. So many people that are in the It's San Facebook group have been on the show. Some have miraculously had these incredible recoveries within 6 months. Some people, I would say on average, I think they say what the average is like 3 to 5 years or something like that. Then there's other people that are 7, 8, or even 9 years into this, which breaks my heart into a million pieces because I don't want anyone going through this for a year, let alone 9 years. But what everybody's, the thing that I want to always remind people is to be careful not to listen to what I say, what you say, what everybody else says, and say, this cream helped me, this diet helped me, this treatment helped me, because it is so unknown that what helps one will not help another, might make it worse for another. You have to just learn. And I'm so grateful and appreciative now I'm trying to learn and understand the way my specific body works and what it reacts to. So it is a gift in that way to know, like, it's like I'm here, my body's here, we're trying to talk and communicate to each other. I'm trying to like learn. So what would you say? So many people think time is the healer. Would you agree? Do you like that statement? Do you not like that statement? And if so, and what did you think helped you the most? Whether it's mindset work, a physical product, a diet, whatever. What the time question, and then what did you like that you did?
I think you sort of made so many valid, good points in what you were saying. I think I have become a bit of a broken record, and I know I've sort of taken a lot of slack for saying this, like a lot. But it does come down to time. And if you do look at sort of the people who have recovered, it's the same message for a reason. And whilst I understand that withdrawal is not viable for everyone, it is, if you, like you were saying, I think you can't sugarcoat withdrawal. It's going to be hell, and you can't, there's not much you can say, and not much advice you can offer that's going to alleviate symptoms whilst you're going through it, which makes it even, I feel like horrendous as a person when I say to people, just keep going, ride it out. And I'm like, I know riding it out is like the most hellish thing ever, but for me, and it really did come down to time. And I think at the more time that passes, the more I would say to people as well, you mentioned it about, you have to listen to your voice and not be sort of taken by what other people are saying. Because I think on top of all the mad symptoms of withdrawal, especially the mental ones that get thrown at you on top of the physical, is, it's an intense period. But because of social media and because there are so many people suffering now, we now have a lot of people offering advice that I would say, and I say this, I've been in the sort of community for a very long time. 99.99999% of what I've seen online should not be out there like as information, because mentally that is going to mess with your head. I think, and there's a lot of like trends with everything on social media. There are trends. There's like veganism, there's Dr. Aaron, there's all these different things that get thrown at you. Do you use moisturizer? Do you not use moisturizer? Go on NMT, don't drink water. You constantly, if you're coming this, person who is already in a vulnerable position, because I felt at my most vulnerable and most like exposed during withdrawal, you go in and you're bombarded with all this information. Suddenly you feel like I'm not doing, what I should be. People are telling me I need to do this to get better. And I'm like, oh my God. And I think people need to sort of see a situation as it is. There's a lot of people now, because withdrawal is probably one of the biggest medical injustices out there. There's so many people suffering now. This is a money opportunity for a lot of people to cash in on what is a community that is growing exponentially. So I've seen some things about like these, like diet is a very controversial subject. And I do understand, and I definitely feel that during withdrawal, if I was eating too much junk food, it would maybe exacerbate a symptom, but it wouldn't cure it by taking it away. It would just sort of irritate, like anything would, I do think diet can help support your body, but I don't think it can heal it, because this is at its core a drug withdrawal. The body just needs to ride it out. In my opinion, I'm not a medical professional. I'm just a person who went through this and got better. So I'm sort of imparting what I can from my perspective. But there's people out there that are selling things that aren't going to heal you, but they're putting it in a way that's you meant to heal. I get these messages every day from people, and it's like, oh, I'm speaking to a naturopath and they're telling me I need to eat this every day. I'm like, what is this? Like, for me, it's one of the things that makes me utterly livid at this point, because there's this other girl who messaged me and she was like, oh, hi, I don't know what to do. This girl has offered me, I've like a meal plan, like 4 meal plans or whatever. She paid her £700 and has not received the meal plans. And I'm like, and this is someone who's quite prominent in the community. And I'm like, wow, like this is unacceptable. And this is the problem. Like, I remember when I started withdrawal, my mum went to Holland and Barrett, we had all this health food stuff, all this like, you know, like hair products, like they're all natural. And we were that, you know, we went into it with this like rosy sort of opinion of, oh, these things will help and, you know, whatever. But very quickly, you know, especially when like the oozing kicked in, I was like, if I can get through the day, that's excellent. You know what I mean? And I literally think that having this added stuff that people are bombarded with every single day on things that they're meant to do, guys, you don't. You've got to listen to that voice inside and say, what do I fancy? What do I feel like doing? And it's amazing because every single time you will get an answer. You will know, like, if your body needs to sleep, go sleep because you probably have not slept through the night. You've got to listen to you, and the people online that are like guilting people into doing things. I've been, you know, I hold my hands up. I've been very, very sort of, I've got my opinions and I've shared them very openly. But people have got to listen to themselves. They've got to be kind to themselves. And I do think at this point that we have to address social media as something that could be doing way more harm than good. Please be careful. To anyone that's listening to this, please be careful with how you are using social media, because I have so much gratitude now that I went through withdrawal during a time where, whilst this, I say this because the most incredible experiences have happened whilst I've been communicating with people going through withdrawal. You know, I've made some incredible friends through this. So I say this whilst having love for this community. I think you've got to be careful because I think it's creating something really toxic, you know?
I totally, completely agree with you.
Yeah.
It's social media is a blessing and a curse. And I can't tell you how many times just being in the It's An Facebook group, which I think is probably the most popular in our community. While I found so many made great connections and friendships, seen a lot of really helpful information. Then you see somebody that had a huge relapse, and rightfully so. We all need a place to sometimes vent and cry and feel like people are there to want to lift us up. But it can really do a number to your own mindset and hurt your healing process. And one thing I want to go back that you said in the beginning is that, which I find so incredible, and it's one of my most passionate things that I want to give back to the community and really focus mostly on. You said from the minute that you found out that this is what it was, you never really doubted that you were going to be healed. You maybe had some moments here and there, but the whole time, even going through the worst of the worst, you were like, well, I still know I'm a day closer. I still know that I'm healing. I still know that I took the problem away, which was those darn medications. And now there's only one way to go, and it's up. Even though it's going to feel like this, I still know that even when I'm down here, I'm still slowly going up. So the point being, mindset is the most powerful weapon that you have to defeat any illness, any disease, and that is something like I'm very open about that. That is, yes, it's my opinion, but there's also facts to back that. There's so many like placebo tests out there with people with cancer, with people with these like, you know, debilitating conditions. The power of the mind is huge. So I believe, and I agree with literally almost everything that you said, probably everything you said, because it's hard to know what's the truth. We don't have 100% answers. We can only go with our gut and our intuition. But I do agree with you. I've tried the diet changes. I've tried the naturopath, the homeopath, the infectious disease doctor, this doctor, that doctor. I've tried all the things. And at the end of the day, what I've realized is whatever feels good to me that day or in that moment, or it's working for me, that's what I'm going to do. It doesn't mean that that's going to continue to work for me. It doesn't mean that that's the cure. It just means I'm going to be comfortable. However I can be comfortable, I'm here for that. I'm going to do that and honor what my body is asking me and saying that it likes or what it doesn't like. But just like yourself, everything shifted for me. I don't know, a few months back where I just made a decision. I'm like, no, I'm already healed. My body's going to catch up, but I am already healed. That's already happened. Even though I don't really see it manifested quite yet, I know that I am. I know that this is behind me. I know that this is, and the progress that I experienced in such a very short period of time has been crazy. It could also be time, right? It could be that this is my time but the mind is just, it's huge. So I guess how would you, because I always like, I love people to give like tips or suggestions or things like when it was really hard for you to keep your mind in that good place to, to continue your healing for people that are like, I can't get my mindset right. I can't, I'm having such a hard time with that. I look in the mirror and I'm like, no, I'm not healing at all. Look how I look like a mess. I look terrible. I look awful. Like what do you say, or what advice would you give to someone that's really struggling in that department?
I think the best thing that you can do, and going back to social media, but it's not necessarily even social media on TSW, switch off online, just
Mm.
come away. And it's the irony, and I've talked about this a lot, especially in the last few years, that the irony is I probably focus more on TSW now that I'm recovered than when I was going through it. And I think it's so important with TSW, the best kind of coping mechanisms you have is distractions. So this is why social media and TSW is not a good idea, because the last thing that you should be looking at, especially when you're in a bad place with withdrawal, is to focus more on withdrawal. For
Mm-hmm.
me, like I really like what helped me the most, and I think were healing, were writing, were reading, were watching things that brought me joy. I didn't look at anything depressing. I logged out of my like personal Facebook, and I thought, I don't want to see it. I don't want to. I just want to be. I want to get on with it. I want to let go. And I've talked about this as well a lot. Like I'm quite an anal, like OCD person where I'm very busy, so I have to compartmentalize and plan my days a lot. And also the other thing, because I'm busy, I like quick fixes. So TSW as a process is very weird for me. Like my mind is not programmed for something like withdrawal, which basically forces you to not quick fix. It forces you to let go and not plan, because you haven't got a clue what you'll be doing in an hour and how you'll be feeling, let alone like 2 days time. So I think for me, the best thing I can advise to anyone is to let go, ignore the noise, which is so deafening right now. I really truly feel, and I'm so glad that you've got this amazing mindset going through it in what is essentially a very toxic time to go through withdrawal. Honestly, if I was going through withdrawal now, I would not know what was going. I'd be so overwhelmed, by this. So I think for anyone who's out there, just don't listen. You do not need you need you, and you need to focus on you. You need to be selfish. And I think there's also, especially if you have any kind of online account now, this I talk to this, and especially because I'm quite out there, not at the moment, I'm taking some time, but I've been very present, I would say. I think there's now a lot of pressure that people have to share, and I'm like, you have to be selfish. Don't go with crowds. Don't listen. Just be you. Be your fabulous self. Be kind to yourself. Like, you don't need any of it. You need you. You need to just get through the day and find distractions.
I
Just
love that.
ignore, you know?
Oh my gosh, I love everything you just said. And what I would echo that about. I love that you said you need to be selfish. For some reason, the word selfish has this negative connotation, and it is not negative at all. You have to look out for you. You have to be the best you to be able to be good in anyone else's life that you love, right? And I completely agree about the distractions. The one thing you said, was like, I filled my days with joy in this. And so I was looking around. I have a book, whether you've seen the documentary, or I read the book, The Secret, which is all about the law of attraction. There's a case study in there about a woman who got diagnosed with like stage 4 breast cancer. And she decided to not do any treatment. And she said, what I did was every night, me and my husband would watch the Three Stooges. We would crack up. We would start laughing. I would spend my days like drinking my favorite tea, doing my favorite things, but making sure that there was so much to laugh. I was laughing all the time, never once thinking about what my diagnosis was, about the potential, what if I don't get better? It was not even an option. And then a couple of months later, the scans, she's 100% cured, no treatment, no nothing. So again, it's the power of the mind, but also you taking control. It's funny, you take control over what you can control and you let go of everything else. So when you said let go, That's a common theme. Me and my therapist always talk about that because just like you, I'm like, I want to control things and I want to plan things and I like to know what's coming and what's next and what I can do. And with something like this, it's the most humbling experience because you have no idea one moment to the next how you're going to feel, what's going to happen, what symptom you may experience. And so I'm always saying like, let go, let God, like know what's in your control and in your power and know that most of it is not in your control. So there's something kind of nice about that because you know that there's really nothing else you could be doing to help yourself other than the couple little things that you really can do. So I agree. I think if you're going to get on social media, which we all are, try to put blinders up as much as you can, and then maybe only follow like choose a couple positive maybe TSW accounts that if you want to get information or something, but then like shut it down, right? If you really are having a hard time saying no completely, like because some people, I mean, it is an addiction for a lot of us. It really is. It sucks you in, but also try so hard to only be in places online where if somebody is experiencing what you're experiencing, then it's like more uplifting, more positive, more hopeful, which again, you don't really have all that control when you get into Facebook groups and this, you see what you see. And if it's, I will tell you, like earlier on, I was so sucked in and I would see, oh, this is good information. And then I would see something that would just throw me off, that would make me doubt everything, that would make me be so upset. And it's nobody's fault. Everybody needs a place to share what they need to do, but it can really hold you back. It can really, I really believe it can slow your process of healing down when you're allowing things into your line of vision, into your mind that are like a little bit scary. Then you're not focusing your mind on, I am healing. It's like, ooh, how long is this going to take? But this person's still at it 7 years later. What if that's me? Oh my gosh. Like, and it really creates this really vicious cycle in your mind that does not help you at all with your body. So I
100%.
totally agree.
No, I think you put that perfectly. It's weird as I'm getting older, the more I'm sort of looking into like manifestation. I mean, like I said, TSW is such a different like concept for me, but it's ironic that the most successful journey I've been on is one where I have just let go and sort of embraced sort of the unknown. And I think I kind of wish I could get in that TSW mindset again, because, I think that's the other thing. When you're in something so much, you don't listen to your own voice. And it's the most powerful tool that we have. And I think the other thing that I would like to say, and I think it's very important, that I say this because a lot of people need a longer journey. They just do. And it's just one of those heartbreaking, awful things. But a lot of the people that are a lot of years down the line are using things that I would not say aid recovery, like things like licorice, like what is it, like immunosuppressants, Depexin. I think this is something that's very important to say, that I think people need to be a bit more clear on what they've actually used. There's someone who screams about the benefits of licorice, but in the same thing is saying, I'm 7 years withdrawal and I'm still struggling. I'm like, we need to be more clear about what
Super transparent.
transparency,
Yes.
And I think whilst again, I stress that I would not have been able to go through withdrawal naturally without my mum. Like, there is no way in hell I would be able to work. My symptoms were physically, I couldn't do much at all. But we have to be more transparent and more sort of black and white about what the reality of what certain things are doing. Licorice works as a natural steroid in the body, and we can gloss it up. We can say, oh, it's a herb. What are you talking about? Look at that naturopath. They're saying it's fine. That naturopath has never gone through withdrawal. That naturopath is not getting the messages I get every day from people. And I think we need to be more black and white about these situations. And again, it's a difficult subject. It's a subject which causes a lot of, and understandably so, there's a lot of emotions around these subjects, but it is something that, again, I feel social media is to blame for, that it's demonizing things, and it's demonizing opinions that are negative about licorice, about immunos, about Depexin. There isn't. It's just saying you know, people message me every day and they're like, I've had a bad experience with X, Y, and Z, but I'm too scared to talk about it because I'll be told I'm that. And, you know, they've spoken to people on like not forum, the Facebook groups, and they get shouted down. This is not good. This is not conducive again to healing. This is, you know, whether you're using something or not, that's the sad thing. We're all part of the same community and we should be allowed to share without this sort of toxic demonizing.
100%.
And
And
it just,
that's true
yeah,
with the whole world today, with all the issues that we're all facing. It's like people feel scared to speak up and say what they think or what they feel or their experience because they think they're going to get chastised and they're going to get shouted. Like, you know, it's shunned from the community. It's so not an inclusive place of love and acceptance and just like, let's just agree to disagree. And to your point, that's why you really do need to take everything like with a grain of salt, because the licorice thing, right? Like, I don't know, maybe that works, but I also hear from people saying, well, it does mimic a steroid, which can make your withdrawal worse and this and that. It's scary, and it's upsetting that there isn't just a magic wand or saying, hey, here's the one thing that you can pop the pill or put this cream on and you will be fixed. It doesn't exist. But I think it's even bigger than that, because if you take TSW aside and you look at any issue, any condition, any problem, if you don't make a commitment that I believe that I'm going to be healed, I'm going to heal. And then whatever treatment or potion or lotion, whatever you decide to do, it's only going to work as well as you think it's going to work, no matter what it is. And that might sound very woo and like crazy, but it's just the truth. And you can look at so many different case studies, people, it just is. So it's instead of looking at it, like, I would challenge anybody to change your mindset to go from, this is so depressing that there is no cure, to I actually have all the potential and the power that I need to just make a decision and then just trust the process and honor my body and listen and learn about my particular body and what I need. And kind of look at it like a journey of understanding the body that you're living in for the rest of your life. Like, you know, try to look at it like that, because if not for this condition, I think myself for sure, and probably so many others, really, how much would you really be paying attention to about what you're putting on your skin, what you're putting in your mouth, what you're putting in your brain, in your mind? You just wouldn't, it takes something like this to bring you down to your knees to really be like, I get it. I'm paying attention now. In fact, like I had another guest on, her episode didn't come out yet. And she is incredibly spiritual, very, like, one of the most spiritually gifted women that I think I've ever met. And so it is going to be, again, we talk about being afraid of putting things out there. This is going to be, it was a lot about mindset, but it's a lot about faith and spirituality and the power that can have. And so that probably will rub some people the wrong way, the people that don't believe in that or don't want to go there. But I think, to your point about the social media, which I agree with, and to my point with this specific show, I have had people that are nutritionists on the show. I've had people that are, you know, doctors or whatever the case may be. And I'm bringing these people on the show to offer their perspective, their professional opinion, but also always giving the warning, do not let social media or a show like this or anything, any blog or anything out there confuse you or not. Don't look at it like it is the answer. Look at it like, if you are curious, I always encourage everyone to be curious about everything in life. Be curious, try something for yourself, not because it worked for 20 other people, but because you think that might be something that I would like to try. And I believe that it's worth trying because it makes sense to me. But don't make any decision based on all the Facebook group comments, the forum comments, the podcast guests. You know, you got to really get in touch with yourself and really think, you know, because my thing is, put as much out there as you can and give people all the information, you know, while being transparent, because that's huge. But then, you know, it's up to them. It's up to every individual to make a decision that they think is going to support their own healing journey in their way.
100%. You put that so perfectly. You really, really did. And I think what is really sad for me about what's happened with the community and sort of social media, we have all suffered because of exactly the same thing. We all have exactly the same thing. And it's a shame that we can't just come together and just even celebrate differences, but every single opinion, every single path comes with so much anger. And sort of, I think, unfortunately, we are living in a day and age where opinions are just weaponized.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't say anything without being put in a box that you are something. I can talk about the negatives of immunosuppressants like licorice, whilst having really good friends that are on those and believe in them. And we can have conversations that are completely rational without having like butting heads and like saying,
Without you making them feel bad for doing that, and without making them say that they're wrong. Like, who
yeah,
are we to say that any one other person is wrong, you know?
I agree. And the thing is, it's like, I know someone who's using cyclosporine who is like, she's got this like high powered job and cannot go through withdrawal, but still innately understands the sort of, we're on a common ground because we've suffered the same way. And it's just sad that, especially, I think, unfortunately as well, that the natural, sort of taking away medication has become like, I'm judging you. And it's like, no, I'm really not. And the thing is, they're like, you've said this, and you're pushing like suicide, which I've had quite a common like that is a common thread, that people, by me merely sharing that I decided to not use medication, is me like pushing like suicide and like judging people. And I'm like, I'm not judging you. I'm just sharing my opinion, which I should be allowed to, and
Absolutely.
you should be allowed to share yours, and we should be able to coexist without any kind of like. But there's so much like,
I've
it's just
seen it.
very
I've seen it with so many in our community that's like Dupixent's the biggest drug right now floating around, right? So many of them. Well, one of the interviews she went viral with a TikTok video. Her name's Cynthia. She felt, when we spoke last, she said, I'm doing great, but just between us, and this has come out since, so I'm not not blowing anything up. But she said, I feel like a traitor because I felt like I needed to try Dupixent, and I feel like I'm scared to put that out there because I know they're going to start attacking me, and for whatever reason. And it made me so sad. I'm like, but that's your story. That's what you're choosing to do. You should be allowed to do that. And like, honestly, F them. Like, if they're going to be like that and judgmental like that, that's not right. And similar other people in our community with Dupixent, it's like, then the dogs come out and it's like, well, I can't believe you would, go on that drug, and drugs are what messed us up in the first place. And why would you? It's like, that's not right. If that person feels that they need to try that, let's be honest, no one wants to do that. They're feeling desperate and they feel like they really have no choice, or that's what they did their research. It made sense to them. I'm similar to you. I am probably so much PTSD that I am terrified of all drugs. And I'm probably going to the other extreme where I'm like, I'll just kumbaya my way out of this. I'm not doing it. I'm scared. Yeah. And, the pharmaceutical industry is so corrupt, and there's so much negative there. But if that is something that you feel called to do, God bless you. I hope it works for you. I hope you don't get side effects. Why isn't it more of a compassionate, positive place where we are all, like you said, we're in this place because of what happened to all of us. So why are we not just lifting each other up, and whatever works for everybody else? If salt baths work for you, and saunas work for you, and Dupixent works for you, thank you, God. I'm so happy that you found that what works for you. It's supposed to be like that. So I hope anybody listening to our episode here is feeling like, I feel less judged. I feel like I can share more, but I also I want to echo what you said multiple times about just being very careful when it comes to social media, because you're already in such a fragile state. And some of us are suicidal and just super depressed. And if you do start to feel, I can put myself out there, and the second you do, you have negative people coming, you have to protect, you are responsible for your mind and your health and yourself. And that's it. So if you can't do that and you're not strong enough to, and even if you think you are, some people that come out, it can really wreck you. So just be really careful of that. But I don't know. I want to encourage everybody to just do whatever feels good for you, and know that you have our blessing, and you have, and you know what? And if you just need to stay with your own close network, your family, your friends, then just do that. And like you said, shut out the noise. And that's I believe that's what helps healing tremendously, probably more than anything else.
No, it's true, because I think we're using social media as, and I say doctors in a loose term because I don't think doctors do help us through withdrawal, because we're currently at a stage where some of them are coming round to it, but their only treatment options are using eczema as the sort of building blocks to creating a sort of treatment plan that's right. And I think that's what's scary, because I think people see like an immunosuppressant and they don't see the side effects. And I think this is where social media needs to be very, very careful. And I think it's on both things. I think it goes back to transparency. There have been people that have messaged me that said, oh, I used, Protopic on my neck because I had a little thing and now I'm flaring badly again. But there's no one's allowed to talk about that side of things. So people aren't realizing exactly what they're getting into. So I think it just needs to change. And it goes back to, there should be zero judgment, but there should also be zero negativity when people just say, guys, these are the side effects. This is what might happen. And I think it just needs to move forward in a more progressive, open, non-judgmental space, whether that's pro or against. It should just be conversations and not arguments. So
I completely agree. I can't thank you enough. I know we were going back and forth. Well, actually, and you really are a woman of your word, because when we first connected on Instagram online, you were like, hey, I'm taking actually a digital detox for quite some time, so I will get back to you. And I was like, wow, I so respect that. I've done that myself. Highly recommend that. So you definitely practice what you preach. I love that about you. And I just want to thank you, because I know that for a lot of people that have already healed, they want that to stay behind them and they don't want to ever go back there. But because you're still advocating and out there and putting things out there, it means I'm speaking for someone still in it. And for everybody else, it means so much to have somebody that's a powerful voice like you and continue to fight our fight and really put that information out there. So thank you for being on the show and for putting your book out there and continuing to spread the word and help this awareness continue to spread. It is very, very, very appreciated.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And it's been so lovely speaking to you. You just have such an amazing attitude. It's like, it's exactly what I would recommend to anyone. It's perfect. So it's been really lovely speaking to you. Very lovely and positive.
Thank you so much. Well, I can't wait to stay connected and in touch. And if we ever can help one another out, I'm here for that. And I'm grateful for this god awful thing we're going through, just to be introduced to people like you. So thank you so much again. I hope you have a beautiful rest of the day, and we will be in touch.
Absolutely. Totally looking forward to it.
Awesome. Bye, Cara. Thanks for listening. Please remember to subscribe and leave feedback. With your help, we can spread awareness together. So please share the show with anyone you know who may be struggling with a medical condition and using steroids to treat it. And be sure to check out the blog for helpful resources to aid you along your TSW journey at tswjourneytohealing.com.